You know those books on spirituality that are basically just the literary version of sage smoke and confusing metaphors? Yeah, no-nonsense spirituality is not one of them. Brittney L. Hartley walks into the spiritual self-help genre like your brutally honest friend who throws out your essential oils, hands you a coffee and says, "Let's talk about your soul without losing our minds, okay?" This book isn't here to convert you into a monk or get you levitating by sunrise. Instead, it's a breath of fresh, down-to-earth air for anyone who wants to deepen their inner life without diving headfirst into cosmic jargon or mystical mumbo-jumbo. Hartley blends humor, common sense, and philosophical depth into a truly readable, and dare I say enjoyable, guide to living meaningfully in the modern world. Let's break this baby down. Paragraph by paragraph. Thought by thought. All fluff-free. Chapter 1. Breaking up with religion and not losing your mind. Hartley starts off where many spiritual journeys begin, right in the messy middle of disillusionment. She doesn't shy away from calling out the emotional whiplash that comes with leaving behind organized religion. Whether you grew up Mormon, like she did, Catholic, evangelical, or in any tight-knit religious community, there's a certain heartbreak that comes with realizing, wait, this isn't for me anymore. But she's not here to bash your upbringing. Instead, she offers validation for the grief, the loneliness, and even the occasional, "was that all a lie?" existential crisis. Her writing doesn't judge or push, it's more like sitting with a wise older sister who says, "Yep, that sucks. Now let's figure out how to move forward without becoming a bitter, directionless adult." Hartley makes it clear, spiritual growth isn't about burning your past to the ground. It's about building something better with what you've learned, even if the bricks are a little chipped. Chapter 2. The Problem with the Woo. Here's where things get fun. Hartley throws a polite but firm side-eye at what she calls the spiritual circus. Think astrology-fueled destiny charts, Instagram gurus with $88 crystal elixirs, and self-appointed shamans trying to sell enlightenment in 10 steps or less. She's not against the mystical per se, she just wants us to be aware of how easily our desire for answers can turn into vulnerability to manipulation. Especially when people are freshly out of religion, they can go searching for meaning and stumble into an even weirder, glitter-covered cult-like version of belief. This chapter is part spiritual detox and part comic relief. Hartley reminds us that it's okay to not have it all figured out, and that true spiritual wisdom doesn't need to come wrapped in velvet robes or sound like a TED Talk given by Gandalf. Chapter 3. Building a personal framework without getting weird about it. So what happens when you throw out old beliefs, but don't want to float aimlessly through life like a leaf in the wind? Hartley introduces the idea of a personal spiritual framework. It's basically a belief system you build yourself, not out of dogma, but out of experience, curiosity, and honest introspection. She encourages readers to start by identifying their core values. Not the ones you think you should have, but the ones that actually show up in your real life. Do you crave connection? Seek truth? Want to be useful to others? These are the bricks. The mortar? Compassion, honesty, and that occasional willingness to admit, I have no idea what's going on, but I'm doing my best. What's revolutionary here is the concept of building a belief system without needing to believe in anything supernatural. Hartley shows us that a meaningful, spiritual life is possible even if you've tossed karma, heaven, and reincarnation in the junk drawer. Chapter 4. The Role of Mystery, and Why It's Not a Cop-Out. Now, you'd think that a book about no-nonsense spirituality would shy away from the mystical altogether, but nope. Hartley gets real honest in this chapter about the role of mystery. Not in the aliens built the pyramids kind of way, but in the deeply human experience of awe, wonder, and not knowing. She talks about mystery as something sacred, not because it explains everything, but because it reminds us of our smallness, our limitations, our place in a vast and beautiful universe we can't fully understand and don't need to. Mystery, she says, is the spiritual glue that holds your framework together when logic runs out. You don't need to define it. You don't even need to explain it. Just let it sit there, quietly reminding you that not everything meaningful has to make sense. It's like that feeling when you stare at the stars or hold a newborn or hear a song that somehow punches you in the soul. That's the mystery. You don't need to name it to be changed by it. Chapter 5. Tools of the Trade, minus the incense and gong. This chapter is where Hartley gets practical. She shares the tools that actually help people stay grounded in their spiritual lives. Not because they're ancient or magical, but because they work. We're talking journaling, meditation, no lotus position required, time in nature, self-reflection, acts of kindness, and honest conversations. No mantras. No guided visualizations where you meet your spirit animal on a mountaintop. Just solid habits that help you stay sane and present. She makes a point to say that these aren't just for the enlightened, they're survival tools. When life goes sideways, as it inevitably does, these are the practices that keep you from unraveling. They're like duct tape for the soul. Also, shout out to her recurring reminder. If a tool feels forced or phony, toss it. Spirituality should feel like home, not homework. Chapter 6. Navigating relationships after deconstruction. This one hits hard, especially for folks who've recently stepped away from traditional religion. Hartley digs into the real-world messiness of dealing with friends, family, and partners who are still in while you're very much out. She doesn't offer sugar-coated advice. Instead, she validates how awkward, painful, and even alienating this journey can be. Some people won't get you anymore. Others might try to save you. And worst of all, some might quietly disappear. Her advice? Set boundaries. Communicate with kindness. Find your people, your actual people, not the ones who only liked you when you believed the same things. And most importantly, don't fall into the trap of superiority. Leaving religion doesn't make you better. It just makes you different. This chapter is part spiritual pep talk, part group therapy, and entirely necessary. Chapter 7. The Ethics of a Meaningful Life. You can't talk about spirituality without talking about morality, and Hartley delivers a refreshing take. Instead of moral codes handed down from on high, she advocates for self-derived ethics based on empathy, reason, and consequences. She challenges the reader to ask tough questions. How do you want to live? What kind of human do you want to be? And how do your daily choices reflect those values? Her version of ethics is both simple and profound. Do good. Be kind. Try not to be a jerk. Own your screw-ups. And when you hurt someone, apologize like an adult. Enlightenment might be optional, but integrity sure as hell isn't. Final thoughts. A spiritual life that actually makes sense. No-nonsense spirituality is exactly what the title promises. It's not a sermon. It's not a New Age fairy tale. It's a guidebook for people who want meaning without myth, purpose without pretense, and connection without compromise. Brittney L. Hartley doesn't claim to have all the answers. In fact, her superpower might be her willingness to say, I don't know, but here's what helps me sleep at night. She's vulnerable, sharp-witted, deeply intelligent, and unafraid to poke holes in her own thinking. This book is for the quietly searching, the skeptics with big hearts, the ex-believers still mourning, the pragmatic idealists, and everyone in between. In the end, Hartley leaves us with a profound reminder. Spirituality doesn't have to be sacred to be serious. It doesn't need incense, altars, or revelations. All it really needs is honesty, intention, and a little bit of courage. So go ahead, light the candle if it makes you feel good. Or don't. The divine will still find you, whether you chant or just quietly go about your day being a good human. And really, that might be the most spiritual thing of all.